guys, Ralph here. True Power, Trumpet Fitness, and welcome to Magnificent Monday here in Connecticut. It is a beautiful day. The sun's out. We only got a dusting of snow. There's supposed to be this huge storm with power outages and all that sort of stuff. Nothing. A little dusting of snow. We did get some rain. And it's very cold today, single digits, and it'll go down into wind chills in a little, but nothing. We dodged a bullet. Anyway, you saw the thumbnail. The Good Doctor. And yeah, in honor of the Good Doctor, I'm using my circa 1970 tarnished Getzen Eterna Severson model. I've still got it. There's still needs soldering in one of the braces. I will use no pressure. I'll bend this thing in half. I haven't played yet today. Let's see what we got. Anyway, with the sun in my eyes, I'm just glad the sun's out, so I'll take it. Anyway, the usual. Double C on my Doc Severinsen Getzen Eterna Severinsen model. 1970. I'll never forget. Doc was my idol. And that cost $150. 150. And my parents made me pay for half. So I mowed lawns and shoveled snow for about 6 months to afford my half. And when I opened up that case and saw that shiny new with the brand new Amada water keys, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I'll tell you what, guys. I would have to say that Doc was probably my first idol. Before I really, this is middle school we're talking, okay? Freshman in high school like that. I'm like 15 years old, 14, 15 years old. And Doc was the biggest name in the trumpet world. If you want to go orchestral, certainly Vacchiano was the man there. But, at that time, I had not yet fallen off the turnip truck in Portland, Maine. And I knew of Vacchiano, but Doc was front and center. All his recordings, okay, the crazy costumes, and of course, his presence on The Tonight Show 5 nights a week. Now, guys, you got to remember that was complete 100% Hollywood. And at the time, probably the most popular trumpet player was Herb Alpert and his Tijuana Brass. And I'm sure that Herb Alpert was thought of for that spot in the Tonight Show band. But lucky for us, the most visible trumpet player of that time because of that was Doc. And we got one of the greatest trumpet players of all time that we would listen to 5 nights a week. And even when I was playing full time, hopefully I would try to get home by 12:30 at night so I could hear a little bit of Doc. He would get featured maybe once a week, he and the band. He would always play back up the singers, Buddy Rich and Melissa Manchester and all the Paul Anka and all of them he would play. So you'd hear this incredible band and Doc, and he was the man. He was the man, and with good reason. Now, one of the things that I also love about him is when I started teaching, here was this guy, the greatest trumpet player in the world at the time that we knew, okay, who would practice 3 to 5 hours a day. And guys, I could use that with my kids like you wouldn't believe. It carried that kind of weight. If Doc Severinsen, now some of these were, 10-year-old kids that I had to explain who it was because they never stayed up that late. But once VCRs came out, man, I gave them homework. Have your parents VCR The Tonight Show and listen to Doc Severinsen. Okay? Anyway, I used to say, if Doc can practice 3 to 5 hours a day, who are you? You can't practice 20 minutes? I don't want to hear about it. I can't begin to tell you how many times I use that phrase as a teaching tool. And I was the same way. Now, when I was in high school, I got my first, Doc Severinsen trumpet. The legend of the myth of his legendary practice habits started filtering through. And I said, if Doc can do it, I can practice a couple hours a day. And if I can't reach that high C, then I have to practice more. And if I want to be first in All-State, then I have to practice more. And I just practiced. And it worked right up through high school. I was number 1 in the state in high score and all this sort of stuff, and had a choice of conservatories that I could go to. When I got to New York, of course, I was smothered with some of the greatest trumpet players and trumpet students in the world. And there was only one thing left to do. Practice even more. Practice. I thought that was the cure-all for everything. Okay? And if I had my chops then that I did now and put all that practice in, forget it. We would be off the charts. Off the charts. But anyway, I'm happy the way it turned out, but he was my idol. I think I told you in another one that I actually met him once. And we talked trumpet for hours. That's all he wanted to do was talk trumpet, what mouthpiece I was using. He was interested in Jerry's stuff, so I talked with him about that. And he was complaining about his chops. He had a recording session that day. This was in New York, and geez, he had to fly out, take the red, and he couldn't practice. He warmed up in the hotel room, thought he dodged a bullet. He gets to the gig with Faddis and Bernie Glow and the top guys, and he had a solo, and he couldn't play a note. He said he was never so humiliated. And he's moaning. This is Doc Severinsen. Crystal champagne in one hand, moaning about his chops. I mean, it was amazing. Amazing. Now, about his chops. Now, he studied with Benny Baker, who was the big guy around New York at the time. Legendary in his own right. And his pedagogy at the time, which Doc adhered to for the next 70 years. Tighten the corners and loosen the middle and let those notes flap. Now, we think exactly the opposite. Relax the corner, then firm up that pot. That's what we believe. Now, ooh, allergies. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Anyway, so, yeah. So Doc Severinsen played exactly the opposite. Now, I'll tell you what. There is, put that aside about the tight corners and everything. And he preached that till he's in his 90s, and he's still preaching it. Okay? Now, there is a YouTube videos it said Doc Severinsen Trumpet Clinic. It's about 2 hours worth of clinic where he just warms up and shows everybody what he has to do to warm up every day. And I'll tell you what, guys, all that practice was needed to turn him into Doc Severinsen. He does not sound very good when he starts. It gets better and better and better, but by the end, he's, playing double C's and whatnot. But and that's another thing, he wasn't always a big double C guy. Mel Broyles used to tell me, Ace, when I used to play with Doc in the studios, he wasn't this big double C guy he is today. I walk in there and Doc would move over. He had a good F, but he wasn't a double C. He just, by the own power of his will and his practice, he turned himself into Doc Severinsen. Now, I'm just going to throw this out here. If he had what we had, and what Harry James had, and what Horst Fischer had, the relaxed corners, and what we consider to be the definitive embouchure, with that heroic work ethic, I mean, he would have pushed the boundaries so far. Again, listen to this trumpet clinic, this master class. It takes him that long to turn himself into Doc Severinsen. It's amazing. It's amazing to watch. And what is he doing? With hour after hour after hour of Clark study and long tones and James Stamp and all that, he's trying to loosen this up. And all he had to do was play that way from the beginning. And all that time, he devoted to turning in to Doc Severinsen. Could have been used at, what he could have done with that work ethic. Now, here's another thing. If he had the chops right from the beginning, a la Harry James and Horst Fischer, maybe he wouldn't have had the work ethic. Harry didn't have that work ethic. If he didn't have a job for 3 months, he wouldn't touch the trumpet. Same with Horst Fischer. So maybe, who knows how it would have turned out. It's interesting to think, though. It is really interesting to think. Now, also, another thing to think about. This maniacal way that he played, he went through 4 wives, man. I mean, this was not a happy, healthy, wonderful existence. Quite the opposite. 4 wives and a whole lot of drugs and a whole lot of alcohol later. Now, the playing was sublime. Absolutely sublime. The finished product after he got through practicing and everything was one of the greatest of all time. I got him there with Mel and Harry and Horst and Maurice, and I got him right up there. Got him right up there. Wore out his albums. Wore them out. You know, playing along with him, trying to play the high Fs. Doc, God bless you. What are you, 92, 93 at this time? Wherever you are, Doc. Man. Jerry, Vacchiano, Mel Broyles, and Doc. Now, the first 3 I knew intimately. I knew them personally, and I worked, daily interacting. Doc, I only met you once, but what an impression. Just by the sheer magnitude of your ability. Also, another thing, you want to hear something wild? He has an amazing Carnival of Venice. It's as good as Del Steger's, man. It's as clean and as brisk and as quick. He has an amazing Carnival of Venice, which leads me to believe that something he was doing with the tongue was right. Something was right. So anyway, this is not the first tribute I've done to Doc, but what a guy. What a career. God bless you, Doc, wherever you are, and I'm sure, as we speak, you are still practicing. All right, guys. We'll talk again tomorrow.